Space Harrier is a 1985 Sega arcade game. My name is Larry McFeely, and I'm going to walk you through this game and a few of the different systems it was released on with a speedy delivery to get you through it quick. I first played Space Harrier in 1986 on the Sega Master System, and a 10-year-old me was hooked. However, the Sega Master System version of the game was different from the arcade and had a little more magic and storytelling weaved in. I'm going to switch back and forth a lot throughout this video, displaying different ports of the game, but I'll be sure to list the game port I'm playing on throughout the video. The title screen couldn't look happier or more friendly, which is deceiving because our Space Harrier is sitting on top of the shoulder of one of the biggest threats of the game named Dom. A one-eyed mammoth stands next to you, and that's just about all he does in the game too. Just stands there. Space Harrier always had the coolest sound effects. Just the sound that was made when a credit was added is still such an awesome sound effect. And here we go. Welcome to the Fantasy Zone.
Welcome to the Fantasy Zone. Get ready.
Stage 1 is titled Moot and is the easiest of the stages. Basically, this level gets you comfortable with the controls and gameplay. There's weeds on the ground and airborne rocks in the sky, which you can maneuver around while shooting at the first enemy character in the game, the Mookadents. By the way, these are the names of the characters taken directly out of the Space Harrier game manual for the Sega Master System. Just so you know, I'm not making this up as we go along. These guys are called Tomos. The guide says they are very intelligent, and they attack by splitting into 3 parts, as we see here. The game can pretty much be completed just by pumping in as many credits as you can and going through the motions. The first boss attack comes from Squilla. Most of the end bosses can be defeated by shooting the head or body a certain number of times. I absolutely love the music in this game. In fact, I loved the music so much as a kid that I would sit in front of the TV and record the music on cassette and then play it back later on my Walkman. Once beaten, we move on to Stage 2, Geeza. Now, as I die right here from running into a rock,
Get ready.
you hear the iconic Space Harrier scream and Get Ready voice samples. And notice the message that appeared in the arcade version each time you start playing again that reads, "Ready? Many more battle scenes will soon be available." Here, take another look.
Get ready.
We'll speed through Stage 2 as we fight Skegs and Idas, and finally finagle through a series of Incaic poles before we arrive at the Stage 2 boss creature, Barbarian, who is surrounded by spinning Idas. The incredible music for Space Harrier was written by Hiroshi Kawaguchi, who also wrote the music for Sega's Hang On, Afterburner, and Outrun.
Get ready.
Stage 3 is called Amar, and it's very colorful and reminiscent of the Sega game Fantasy Zone. Throughout this stage, you can destroy Kinoko mushrooms, loopers, which are listed as being a hybrid of plant and animal, and canaries with large wings. All while making your way around the Matsutake mushrooms and peanuts, which both cannot be destroyed.
Get ready.
Stage 3 ends with a really cool-looking double-headed dragon called Gadarni.
Get ready.
After he's defeated, it's on to what I always referred to as a top-down stage. Stage 4 is called Ceiciel, and it's one of the many reasons why I loved this game as a kid. The top comes down and you immediately get this feeling of being locked into a tight space. And then come the Binsbean, or 20-sided spaceships, and Towers of Doom, both of which can't be destroyed, so you're stuck making your way around it all. Time for a side story. My friend Rob somehow had this all figured out when we were only 10 years old playing this game on a Sega Master System. If you just continuously move Space Harrier in circles, no matter clockwise or counter, you have a better chance at avoiding the obstacles not only on this level, but throughout the entire game. In fact, the same sort of movement philosophy shows up in a couple other Sega games like Afterburner and sometimes Thunderblade. Now back to Space Harrier and an example of Rob's circles. We'll get back to the circles again later. At the end of Stage 4, we're finally introduced to Dom. I used to sketch pictures of this very efficient robot in my sketchbooks as a boy. Now, even though Dom is scary, you don't really have to destroy him as he moves past and the stage finishes. I always thought that was weird. We're now at stage 5, the bonus stage, where Uriah the Brave Dragon allows you to ride his back and take down trees and weeds for extra points. And if you were thinking that Uriah looks suspiciously like Falcor from The Never-Ending Story, well, that's exactly what the programmers of the game were thinking too. Stage 6 is called Olisis, and it's where we get to battle Parkerman and jet planes. We'll also see more DOMs on this and all future stages, actually. And at the end of Stage 6, we find Rollies, who attack by spinning, as the game manual says. These can be defeated quickly by moving in circles and firing rapidly.
Get ready. You're doing great.
On Stage 7, titled Lucasia, we find our friend the One-Eyed Mammoth standing around and doing nothing. More Parkermen and DOMs are awaiting the Space Harrier to be destroyed. We also see more Tomos, too, and eventually the Towers of Swords. At the end of Stage 7, the Space Harrier must battle Tetrahedrons. They attack by opening and shutting. Now on Stage 8, called Ida, which is also the name of one of the enemy characters, we zip through barren trees, airborne rocks, and weeds before being attacked by a bunch of Idas. Once they're out of the way, it's back to more Mukadenses, DOMs, and Incaic poles. A set of Tomos pop up too before being attacked by pretty much everything in the level all at once. Eventually, at the end, you battle Sayura, who's actually a little tough since he shoots at you a lot. Stage 9, named Revi, is another top-down stage. This one's a little bit faster, but the same theory my 10-year-old friend Rob came up with applies here. Keep going in circles and shoot your weapon as much as possible. At the end of Revi, a couple of DOMs fly at you before the boss I like to call Mega Dom slowly makes his way towards you. It begins to attack with fury, but once again, another boss that you don't need to beat as much as survive, as it turns around and flies away. Stage 10 is titled Minia, and is another colorful Fantasy Zone-looking stage with jets and both Matsutake and Kinoko mushrooms coming at you in the beginning. The enemy characters don't really change in this game as much as they keep coming at you in different shuffled orders. At the end of Stage 10, you're attacked by a boatload of Tomos. They spin in circles, opening and closing, and eventually just fly away if you don't shoot them all. Here we are at Stage 11, called Parms. And this one is pretty much all DOMs. All sorts of DOMs, stacked up and coming after you one after the next. All sorts of colors too. Green DOMs, blue DOMs, black DOMs, red DOMs. It feels like this level was programmed to weed out the arcade kids who weren't willing to keep pumping quarters into the machine. At the end, you battle Salpedon, who's basically Gadarni with no skin. Stage 12 is the second bonus stage, and once again riding on Uriah's back, you take down as many structures as possible. This time you're wiping out inhabited towers and towers of control. You gotta love the words of encouragement the game passes along, like,
You're doing great.
As we move on to stage 13 named Drail, the stage starts off easy enough with some trees and jets in the way. But soon, Mookadents, Towers of Doom, and more DOMs show up to be annoying.
Get ready.
You finally get to the end boss of this stage named Octopus.
You're doing great.
Stage 14 is titled Asute, and it's another top-down level moving very quick this time. So it's time for more of Rob's Circles as we make our way through the now yellow glowing Bins Beam and Towers of Doom.
Get ready.
At the end of this stage, you'll fight Barbarian again, this time surrounded by loopers. And this time, Barbarian's a little more difficult.
Get ready.
Now we're at stage 15 called Vicel, and we've immediately got Incaic poles and airborne rocks to avoid.
Get ready.
More Tomos and Mookadents show up along with more Doms and Idas.
Get ready.
The dragon at the end of this level is Valda, who is basically Squilla with no skin. Shoot him until he turns red and finally explodes.
You're doing great.
We're getting closer to the end. Now at stage 16, Natura. Lots of DOMs on this stage. Lots of them.
Get ready.
Eventually, you'll finally face the DOM mothership, Stanray. Many more DOMs emerge from the mothership while jets fly directly at you. Now, Stanray itself cannot be destroyed, so don't waste your time going after it.
You're doing great.
We're now on stage 17 called Nark, where we see Bins Beam, Towers of Doom, Idas,
Get ready.
and Mookadents. This is actually a pretty tough level with a lot of bad guys coming at you fast. Fortunately, we're just about at the end. Finally, we arrive at the stage 17 boss, Wee Wee Jumbo. Is it just me, or does this feel like a nod to the original Ghostbusters, with Gozer having a Zool terror dog on each side? His two dogs both fire at you, but they can't be downed until Wee Wee is destroyed. Yeah, I said Wee Wee. Now, you may have thought that was the final boss, but once destroyed, it's time for the final stage called Absymbel. Very cool concept as a kid, because this is one of the first games I can remember where in the final stage you fight most of all the bosses again. I loved it. It's like a trip down memory lane of all the tough guys you've dropped. In no particular order, Ghadarni is first, then Barbarian, and Squilla, then Ida, and Salpedon, Sayura, and Valda. Now that's where things end in the arcade version of Space Harrier, but as I had mentioned earlier, the Sega Master System version was slightly different and extended. When fighting Valda in the end battle, we see a floating castle in the background, and when you finally beat Valda, there's an entirely new enemy to battle called Haya-O. The exclusive final boss was named after the president of Sega at the time, Hayao Nakayama. You'll notice I used a cheat code to have infinite lives. These final stages on the Sega Master System version of Space Harrier are truly difficult, and I just don't have the patience anymore to play through an entire game just to get to the end boss and die. So that's why I'm able to die here over and over, as you're seeing. Now, the Sega Master System ending, which included a Space Harrier Saga Epilogue. There's also an entire Space Harrier prologue that runs if you let the main title screen roll through 5 times over. Space Harrier was designed by Yu Suzuki, who was also responsible for hits like Hang On, Afterburner, and Outrun. As I had mentioned before, the Sega Master System version of the game had more storytelling weaved in, and that made it so special for me in the 1980s. There have been countless number of sequels, remakes, reboots, and knockoffs of Space Harrier, but for me, nothing ever matched up to the first time I played it on a Sega Master System. The story, the graphics, it was so far ahead of its time, and is still considered to be a special game to so many. The epilogue reads, "The battle has ended in a resounding success. Every single barbaric creature has been eliminated from Dragonland, and the menacing shadow of the Evil One can no longer be seen. Never again will the planet fall victim to the invasion of a mad ruler. Peace has been restored, and the land that once abounded with death and devastation will soon become alive and overflowing with greenery and animals of every description." Yes, the victory was certainly a decisive one. But what of the mysterious flying citadel? Why did it inflict such destruction on Dragonland? What if its aim was not merely one of carnage, but instead constituted only part of a master plan of intrigue? With the undying gratitude of Uriah, the gallant warrior disappears towards another troubled spot in the universe. Thus, the first chapter in the Space Harrier saga comes to a close. But not for long. Up ahead, awaiting our hero, is another life and death battle in his never-ending crusade to liberate those who yearn to be free. The end. And there you have it. That's the speedy delivery of Sega's Space Harrier. If you like the walkthrough, hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more. Until next time, we'll see you around the neighborhood.